All right, welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive.
Yes.
Today, we're going to be looking at something I think is really fascinating, and that's this idea of age of the star people.
Okay.
Now, what does that even mean? Well, we're going to try to find out.
Right.
Our source material today is an article from a Hungarian spiritual website, Spiritan.hu, and it was published on December 2nd, 2024.
All right. Interesting.
Yeah, so this is pretty current stuff.
Okay.
And one of the things I found really interesting about this article is that it doesn't just throw out this term.
Yeah.
It connects it to like a whole shift in how we think about religion and spirituality in the modern world.
Yeah, it's almost like it's saying we're entering a new era of consciousness or something, you know?
So could you break this down for me a little bit? Like, what does this age of the star people actually look like, according to the article?
Well, it kind of paints this picture of a time where intuition and inner awareness become as important as traditional wisdom. It's like, imagine looking up at the stars and feeling a deep connection, not just to the vastness of space, but to like the fabric of the universe itself, you know?
I'm getting goosebumps.
It's about recognizing that we're part of something much bigger than ourselves, I think.
So where does religion fit into all of this?
Yeah.
Because is the article saying that traditional religions are like becoming obsolete in this new age, or?
Well, it actually makes a pretty surprising argument, I think. It says that religion and spirituality aren't really at odds with each other, but they actually complement each other. The article uses this really cool analogy. It says that religion is like the roots of a tree. It provides a solid foundation and stability. But spirituality is like the branches. Reaching for the light.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
So they both kind of work together. They're both essential.
Exactly. Yeah.
For the growth. But the article also mentions this tension, right?
Yes, definitely. There's this...
Like there are forces trying to undermine traditional religion.
It seems like some groups want to erode those traditional values while at the same time promoting a kind of fast food spirituality that, you know, lacks depth. It's all surface.
So it's not just about embracing any kind of spirituality. It's got to be like
you need that foundation.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it can become really shallow and self-serving.
So it's all about finding that balance between those roots and the branches.
Exactly.
Now, this is where I think it gets even more interesting.
Yes.
Because the article introduces this whole new concept.
Yes.
Called...
the Stellarion.
Yeah, the Stellarion. I was wondering when this was going to come up.
Right.
It keeps mentioning it, but it never really defines what...
It's such a mystery.
Like a riddle, wrapped in a mystery.
Yeah.
Shrouded in enigma.
Exactly.
So what do you think? What is this Stellarion?
It's really hard to say for sure.
Yeah.
But from what I can gather, it's like this system of thought, or maybe even a movement that views science, religion, and spirituality as different paths. But all equally valid path to understanding the truth.
So it's not about choosing one over the other.
Right.
It's about integrating all three.
Exactly.
Now, the Stellarion views science as the study of the external world.
Yes.
While spirituality delves into the inner dimensions of our being.
Right.
And both are crucial for a complete picture.
A holistic view.
Of reality.
Exactly.
I mean, this is a very holistic approach to knowledge.
It is, very much so.
That values all these different perspectives.
Yeah.
But then the article takes a little bit of a controversial turn, wouldn't you say?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
The Stellarion's views on the West are a little bit provocative, to say the least.
Yeah. So the Stellarion basically claims that the decline of the West is linked to this decline in spirituality and traditional values.
It points to things like atheism and what it calls child-diverse feminism as contributing factors.
Right.
And then it contrasts this with other civilizations like Muslim, Hindu, and Orthodox Jewish communities, which it argues are flourishing because of their strong spiritual foundations and their emphasis on family.
Okay, so that's that's a very bold statement.
Definitely.
And we should be clear here that we are not endorsing these views.
Right, of course.
We're just presenting the information as it appears in the article.
Yes.
And it's important for you, the listener, to critically evaluate these claims and form your own opinions, for sure. These are very complex issues.
Very.
So moving on from that,
yeah,
the article also mentions this interesting symbolism associated with this age of the star people. It talks about silk-veiled female figures.
Yes. That was so interesting.
As like powerful symbols.
Yeah.
Bridging ancient traditions and modern consciousness.
Yeah. It seemed to be suggesting a reinterpretation of the divine feminine or something. Like maybe a blend of Eastern and Western spiritual concepts.
And it ties into this idea of like religious symbols evolving.
Yes.
Becoming more focused on inner peace and harmony with the cosmos.
Right.
In this new age.
Exactly.
Okay, so this makes sense.
Yeah.
Given what we've already talked about with the Stellarion.
Yeah.
But then the article ends on a kind of urgent note.
It does, definitely a sense of urgency.
It's almost like a prophecy.
It is, kind of, yeah.
But one that calls for action.
Right.
It lays out a choice for the West.
Yeah.
Either embrace this new way of thinking, symbolized by the Stellarion, or face potential downfall.
Yeah, so we don't have a lot of time to decide, it seems. It's like a turning point.
The critical moment in history, where we need to choose our path.
Yeah, and this whole sense of urgency makes me wonder, is the Stellarion just a concept? Or is this like a real movement?
That is the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
That's what I want to know.
Right.
It just throws out this term, but it doesn't really give us much to go on.
Yeah, it's almost like they're inviting us to investigate more.
Yeah.
To look for clues and connect the dots ourselves.
So in the next part of our deep dive, we are going to do just that.
Right.
We're going to delve deeper into this enigmatic Stellarion concept.
Sounds good.
And see if we can figure out what it could mean for the future of religion and spirituality.
Looking forward to it.
Me too.
Yeah.
All right, so we've got this Age of the Star people coming.
Right.
This interesting idea of religion and spirituality working together.
Yeah.
And then this mysterious Stellarion concept. I'm hooked.
Yeah.
But I got to say, I'm a little lost too.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot to unpack.
What do you make of this Stellarion thing?
It's definitely the most intriguing part of the article, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like they're almost teasing us with it, dropping these hints, but never really revealing what it is.
Right. So how do we even begin to make sense of it?
Well, we have to be detectives here.
Okay.
We know it emphasizes integration of science, religion, and spirituality.
Okay.
We also know it sees all of these as valid paths to truth.
Right. Not competing ideologies.
Exactly.
Like going back to that tree analogy.
Yeah.
Maybe the Stellarion is like the trunk of the tree.
Okay.
It connects the roots of religion, the branches of spirituality. It's the core that allows the whole tree to stand tall.
Yeah, I like that.
So the Stellarion's about finding a unifying principle.
I think so, bringing all these different aspects together.
Okay, so how would that play out in real life?
Well, that's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
Imagine a world where, say, healthcare professionals don't just treat the physical body,
but also consider a patient's spiritual and emotional well-being.
So a much more holistic approach.
Exactly. Or environmentalists approaching their work, not just from a scientific perspective, but also with a sense of reverence for the interconnectedness of all things.
I see what you mean. A more holistic and integrated approach.
To everything.
Yeah.
Not just societal shifts, but also personal things.
Okay. Like how we approach our relationships, our careers.
Exactly. Making decisions not just based on logic, but also tapping into intuition, considering the ethical implications.
So the Stellarion's not just a philosophy, it's about how we live our lives.
It has the potential to change everything.
Okay, and that's maybe why the article has this sense of urgency.
Yeah, it's not just an intellectual thing.
Right.
It's about realizing the potential to address the big challenges we face.
Speaking of challenges, we can't ignore those controversial statements about the decline of the West.
Yeah, that was definitely a strong statement.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one thing to say we need to integrate these different ways of knowing.
Right.
But it's another to start blaming specific groups.
It's important to remember that these are complex issues with multiple contributing factors.
It's not about finding scapegoats.
Right.
It's about having these honest and nuanced conversations.
Exactly, including diverse voices and perspectives.
Not one group dictating to everyone else.
And I think that spirit of collaboration and dialogue actually aligns really well with the Stellarion.
Okay, so we've explored some interpretations of the Stellarion and its potential impacts. But I still have one question.
Okay.
Is this just a theory? Or is there evidence of this Stellarion in the real world?
That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's hard to say based just on this article, but I think it raises an interesting challenge for our listeners.
Okay.
As you go about your day, as you read the news, as you talk to people, pay attention. Are you seeing any signs of this Stellarion way of thinking?
I like that it's like we're sending them on a scavenger hunt.
Exactly.
To find the Stellarion.
And you might even discover that you're already incorporating some of these principles into your own life.
I love that.
Yeah.
So as we move into the final part of our deep dive, I want everyone to keep this question in mind. Where do you see the Stellarion manifesting in the world?
Yeah.
And how can you be part of bringing this vision of a more integrated future to life?
Right.
Well, we've been on quite a journey.
We have.
From the Age of the Star People to the tree analogy to this deep dive into the Stellarion.
Yeah, it's a lot to think about.
I think this article was designed to get us thinking critically.
Absolutely.
And, you know, speaking of critical thinking, I wanted to circle back to something we talked about earlier.
Okay.
This idea of personal experience.
Yeah.
The article talks about integrating different ways of knowing.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really address the role of, like, individual subjective experience.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So how much weight should we give to personal experiences?
Right.
Especially when it comes to faith and spirituality.
Yeah, like...
I mean, could a mystical experience be just as valid as a scientific study?
It's a really interesting question.
For a lot of people, their spiritual beliefs are rooted in those personal experiences.
Yeah, absolutely.
Things that can't be easily measured or explained by science.
Yeah.
So where does that fit into the Stellarion?
Well, if we go back to that emphasis on integration, it seems like personal experience would have a place.
Right. It adds another dimension.
Yeah, it goes beyond just the rational.
It's like that saying.
Yeah.
You can't understand someone until you walk a mile in their shoes.
Exactly.
And maybe the same applies to spirituality.
Yeah, we can read all the books.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's our own encounters that shape our beliefs.
Okay, so there's no one-size-fits-all answer?
I don't think so, no.
Everyone has to find their own path.
Yeah, their own way of integrating things.
And that path might look different for everyone, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Some people might be drawn to a specific religion. Others might have a more eclectic blend of beliefs.
Yeah, and that's where that Stellarion message of inclusivity is so important.
It's not about dogma.
Right.
It's about creating space for all these different perspectives.
Exactly.
It's like a community garden.
Ooh, I like that.
With all these different plants thriving together.
So even though the article focuses on the West, this conversation is relevant to everyone.
No matter your background or beliefs.
Right.
So I want to leave you with a final thought.
Okay.
The article talked about the power of symbols.
Yeah.
Especially those silk-veiled female figures.
Symbols can be so powerful.
Right.
They tap into something deep.
What are the symbols that resonate with you?
Yeah, think about that.
What images or stories evoke a sense of connection for you?
Explore those symbols. See where they lead.
That's a great way to put it.
You'd not be surprised.
Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive.
It does.
I hope this conversation sparked your curiosity.
Me too.
And maybe inspired you to think about these things in new ways.
Definitely.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, everyone